Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm Thibaut from Rental Scale Up and Price Labs, giving you a few minutes to join. So as you know, today we'll be talking about finding and retaining owners, a big topic if you're a property manager, obviously. So I will be only 50 people in. I'll let you guys come in. I'll be sharing, I think I have like 4 slides, not more than that, basically to introduce myself, the topics of the day, and the speakers. And then we drive straight into questions to our great panel, people who know the industry really, really well and who can share a lot. As usual, I want to keep it super interactive. So Yuvika here, she's the heart and soul of this kind of event. So she's here. She's here to pick any questions you may have. So as you know, there's a chat box. What I'd love to know to make it also very relevant to you is kind of know where you're based. So feel free to go in the chat box here in Zoom and just let us know, in which state you are, which country you are from. That also helps me think, okay, maybe we can tweak that question to make sure it's really relevant to maybe where you're based or the kind of company you are. So feel free again to go to the chat if it's enabled and say where you are. All right. I see it in the questions. The chat is disabled. That's a classic one. I think it's probably in the settings of Zoom. Classic, but I called it. All right, so there's 72 people joining already. Again, as I said, there's like a few slides. Let me get started with the slides already, so it's out of the way, and we can get started with the conversation. Let me get started with that. All right. And meanwhile, we are enabling the chat in case you're wondering what's happening. We're going to the settings doing that. Up. And here we go. Righty, so I'm lucky today to have Hostaway, Price Lab, and Vintry, 2 great names in the industry. As I said, to be talking basically how to find and retain owners, which is always a great topic in our industry. And what's good, we're going to be talking about very actionable stuff, right? So again, bear with me, just a few slides just to introduce ourselves. And then it's an actual discussion you're going to be getting. You'll be able in the chat to ask any question you may have. And as we go along, I will either take the question straight away, ask it, or take it for the end for the Q&A. So I'm Thibaut. I'm the founder of Rental Scale Up. It's a short-term rental news website, and we belong proudly to Price Labs. You can sign up to our free newsletter. So topics of the day, we basically, I'm going to be asking questions, right? I want to know, for example, how to find and attract the best properties in a market, not just a property, the best properties in the A market, right? How, as a property manager, how can I promote my services to attract owners? How can I use data, for example, to put maybe in my owner contract good terms, or start setting expectations right with the owner so they are happy when we work together. Also, how to get the new properties up and running quickly, and how to retain these owners, and also sometimes how or who should we fire in terms of owners. It's a hot topic. And again, I'm very happy to have speakers today who know the industry and can really tell you how it's like. I'm going to quickly go through names and let themselves introduce themselves. But we have for Marcus Ryder, he's the CEO and co-founder of Hostaway. We have Richie Candelval, he's a co-founder of Price Labs. And for Vintry, we have Brooke Faltz. Again, one last slide before I let the speakers introduce themselves is that, as usual with Rental Scale Up, we usually do things. We also ask usually people who are going to be speaking at our event also to extend an offer to people attending, because I think it's fair for your time and for us as a media to offer, go beyond and make stuff actionable and help enable you to actually use these products. So at the end of this session, you get an email with the actual terms to how to redeem all this, and a video replay, by the way. But just so you know, Hostaway is giving away a $499 discount on the onboarding fee. if you sign a contract. With PriceLab, we have 30-day free trial, and 15% off the first 3 months. And for Ventry, we have the setup fees waived. You have Brooks book and a $50 gift card. That's the book. So without further ado, again, I'm going to shut up and let the speakers introduce themselves, and then I'll go back to ask questions. All right. So again, to let you introduce yourselves, maybe let's get started with Marcus. Marcus, how are you? Who are you? And congratulations.
Hey everyone, my name is Marcus from HostAway. We're a PMS solution for vacation rental property managers. Today is a bit special day. Usually when we do things here at HostAway, whatever we do, we only do it if we can do it better than anyone else in the world. And we decided to raise a bit of capital. So we raised, of course, in our tradition, we raised more than any other technology company in the vacation rental space has ever done. Today we raised 175 million. That's why I'm a bit late. I'm going now on hour number 16 of today. I woke up at 5 a.m. Because I'm in Helsinki, and that's around 10 p.m. Pacific time to those who are on the West Coast. But I still have energy for at least 5 hours more.
And again, congratulations and thank you so much. I know it's a crazy day. You're not late at all. We're fine and happy to have you. Richie, you're next.
Absolutely. Firstly, congratulations, Marcus. Hey, everyone. My name's Richie. I'm one of the founders at PriceLabs. We do dynamic pricing for vacation rentals. I have a little bit of a throat issue today. Not as fun a day as Marcus is having. But I'm really excited to talk to you about how you can incorporate some level of data as you think about this topic.
Thank you, Richie. Last not least, Brooke.
Yeah, thank you. And again, congratulations to Marcus. Huge accomplishment to them and the entire HostAway team. But yeah, my name is Brooke Fouts. I'm founder and CEO of Vintory. Vintory is a sales marketing platform that helps professional short-term vacation rental managers do one thing and one thing only, and that's grow their inventory. So we don't do anything with operations. We don't do anything with revenue management. We don't do anything with marketing to OTAs. We focus exclusively on the supply side of things. So that's all we do is we help you get more properties in your rental program. Super excited to be here. This is a great panel.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Brooke. Again, thank you all for being here. As I said, thank you for letting us know where you are. A lot of folks from the US, again, I want to mention Landy for Atlantic Beach. We have South Carolina. We have Florida, Ryan, Florida. Lots of North Carolina, Colorado, Arizona. But Argentina is here as well with Adolfo, for example, Bona from London. Probably Marbella, Spain is here. So quite a few people. Canada is here as well. So quite a few people from North America, from Europe, and South America as well joining. That's fantastic. What we'll be talking today is relevant for property managers, generally speaking. Obviously, you may want to, we'll be talking a lot about also what's possible in the US, because I can see in the crowd, we have a lot of people from the US, but you may also want to think, okay, how may I want to adapt what I'm hearing from my own market? That's just my feeling again. So feel free to ask questions here. I'll be either taking the questions as we are talking, or I will reserve them take them at the end. So let's get started with the first questions. And maybe, again, as I said, okay, we want to find the best properties, right? And the idea is to be able not just to find any property, maybe the best in any market. So how do I figure out things? And maybe starting with you, Richie, for example, how do I maybe use data to consider where should I go and find owners and properties?
Cool, yeah. And again, assuming we're talking about this from property manager context, like you mentioned, Thibaut, right? So I'm going to focus on how do you not purchase properties, so not buy and mortgage and stuff like that, right? But assuming you're going to find other vacation rental owners who you can get the properties from. Generally, you should consider macroeconomic aspects of a market, right? Generally, most markets are good markets, but what you have to consider is supply and demand, right? And for this, you can end up going to PriceLabs' market dashboard or ADNA or Transparent or some of the other providers, right? Where you can see data on what kind of revenues can you expect from a property, what kind of ADRs, what kind of occupancies can you expect from properties in various markets, right? And this helps you first level set what are good markets or what are not so good markets, right? Again, most markets are good, but some markets tend to turn sour over time as saturation increases in those markets with properties, and then there's a cyclic process. Some of the properties then go away, and then the market becomes good, and then over time it becomes a little bit bad, right? So it's a continuous cyclic process. But one of the first things that you're going to do is going to go look for what is a good market, good neighborhood for you to acquire your property in. And one of the simplest ways to think about it is what is the past revenues, what is the past ADRs in that market. So that's number one. Number two, I've heard from some property managers who are more in cities who are now starting to think about not just independent homes, but also thinking about just like large multifamily buildings, right? If you're one of those, you may want to look at where new developments are coming up or new buildings that are coming up in the next 6 months, next 12 months, and you may want to proactively reach out to those developers because you can get a large inventory maybe directly from the developer itself. I've heard this from a few folks in Europe and in South America that they're starting to do this. I'm not fully sure if this is happening in US at the moment, where they're going directly to the developer and working with the developer to take a decent bit of inventory. The next thing that you're going to do is say you've narrowed down on a certain market to say I'm going to focus on Los Angeles, and even in Los Angeles, I'm going to focus on actually I should have picked a better market, maybe New York. I don't know Los Angeles, but maybe I pick New York, and in New York, I'm going to focus on Upper East Side because I've realized that there is decent enough supply. The occupancies there are better than what I see in Lower Manhattan. The RevPARs, etc., are generally looking good. The history is telling me it's generally trending up or in the right direction. Now that I am going to decide I'm going to be in Manhattan, or sorry, in the Upper East Side, I can possibly go to Brook to say, I'm going to be on the Upper East Side. What am I going to do, Brook?
Man, that's a great segue. I think, Thibaut, I think you got a new announcer here.
Perfect. I was about to say, we have a macro view. Now let's hear what to do on the ground. Let's know where to invest. And it's Brooks. Perfect. Let's do that. Go ahead.
No, that's a good segue. I appreciate it. So yeah, I mean, a wise person in marketing once told me 50% of all marketing just comes down to your list. So that's why we've really made this kind of one of our core passions here at Ventori. And I'd argue we have the largest database of vacation rental homeowners in the United States. So the first place I'd go, if you're not using Ventori and our data, first place I would go is just find a list broker. There's a million different list brokers out there. Info USA, Exact Data. If you just Google it, you can find a ton of different list brokers. A couple things to search for, though, when you are using a list broker. The first thing is make sure they have you want to ask for absentee records. Absentee records is where the homeowners, the property address and the mailing address are different. That's usually a good indicator of a real estate investor. The second thing you want to ask that list broker is make sure they have the ability to do appending services. And what that means, appending services, is they can do what's called like a reverse append. So they can match the property address and get the mailing address and the homeowner's name. And they can also get like emails and phones for those people. And I'm sure later on we'll talk about why that's important. Another place you can go to get data is vacation rental permit list. If your city, county, or township requires a vacation rental permit, guess what? There's a list out there for you. You just got to ask. Very often it's going to be challenging to get. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes you can just go to their website and you can download it. Other times you have to, go down to the county courthouse. You got to brown-nosed little old lady behind the counter with brownies and cookies, and maybe if she's lucky, she'll give it to you on a CD-ROM or something. But that's really good data, obviously. And if they push back, just mention Freedom of Information Act, and they have to provide that data. There's another one that's often overlooked is scraping. You can scrape the OTAs. You can scrape your competitors. You can scrape large venture-backed conglomerates. You can scrape your competitors that were purchased by said large venture-backed conglomerates, and other things too. And one thing is, a lot of these big companies are churning a ton of inventory. I mean, some I've heard north of 30% churning inventory for some of these larger companies. So there's a lot of low-hanging fruit out there. Or, I think when, we're heading into a recession now, or I believe we are in a recession or about to head into a recession, a lot of times when things like that happens is people rent out homes that never rented out before. So it doesn't have to just be properties that are in somebody else's rental program. It could be what we call a persona, first time Fords or first time Frank, where they've never rented out before, and don't be afraid to go after people that have never rented.
Super interesting, Brooke. And indeed, I'm keeping that question later, like how I'm going to be using all this. But so that's a wealth of information. Marcus, how about you? What would you add on
well, Brooke, you stole a bit of my pitch there.
Oh,
First
sorry.
of all, if there's any property managers here on this webinar who manage less than 10,000 properties, then I got great news for you. I don't know how much you follow what's going on in the industry, but if you're a property manager managing more than 10,000 properties, things are not going well for you right now. Now, that's great news for about 99% of the participants here. What it means is that running a vacation rental property management business is not something that can scale globally. At least 3 companies have tried and failed. I'm talking about Evolve, Vacasa, and Sonder here. Now, if you happen to be in one location, you have an advantage that nobody can compete with. You know that location. And why is that so important? Well, because first of all, you know the properties, you know how they work. You can go in on these websites and see, well, what if there's any Evolve properties in my area? Well, you'll know them. You know where they are because you know what they look like. Best thing is you got access to an unlimited amount of local tools that no national chains have. For example, you know a plumber who works Sundays. That's something they don't know, and that's why they cannot run their business. So good news, if you have less than 10,000 properties, you are going to survive as long as you focus on knowing your own area better and better.
That's interesting. It's funny, Marcus, because before you joined, we talked about being sarcastic. That's a good entry, but it's actually so true in the end of the day. I mean, as property managers, it's comes down to operations, and a lot of this stuff is local. Just as the data also sometimes is also local once you identify the market. So so let's imagine you have all this data on hand. I know the market. I got all this kind of data. I've also, I know that's maybe, a giant competitor is crumbling and maybe there's like room to enter a market. Why not? How do I then promote my services as a property manager to these potential owners, right? Again, Brooke, you gave us so much insights to what to use or how to use that now.
Yeah, I mean, I could literally do an entire webinar, and I've done many presentations just on this. So I'll try to keep it condensed as possible. I mean, at a 30,000 foot level, there's 3 main channels, right? You have inbound marketing, you have outbound marketing, which we call, our omni-channel marketing method, and then you have referral marketing. So within inbound marketing, obviously you have, content marketing, which unfortunately, it takes time, it takes effort, it takes just consistency. And I know 99% of most vacation rental managers won't do it. So we recommend kind of the quick version of inbound marketing is to create kind of like interactive content. So maybe create like an interactive map on your website that can attract targets that, maybe talks about like the top properties that are currently on the market that make great rental properties. One we've had a lot of successes with is building out interactive ROI calculators, like actually showing how properties will perform. And again, that becomes a great inbound marketing strategy. There's a cool tool called Calconic, where if you can envision a calculator, you can build it, and you don't even have to know how to write any kind of code. You can just embed it right in your landing page. And then obviously PPC. In many markets, most markets, PPC does work. You're not going to get a ton, so you got to cast a really wide net because most of the traffic is searching for is searching for guests, not necessarily owners. But the big one is outbound marketing. So again, we call that omni-channel. So that'd be like direct mail, that'd be email, list-based retargeting through kind of like Facebook, Instagram, even LinkedIn. You can do some list-based retargeting, and then there's some creative things you can do with like IP targeting. But I'll just highlight direct mail real quick. So direct mail, the short-term vacation rental industry is one of the few industries where direct mail actually still works. In the sea of everything digital and emails and everything else, like we see a ton of success with direct mail. You just have to be consistent with it. So I would much rather send, 1,000 postcards 6 times over the course of a year than 6,000 postcards one time and just say, oh, direct mail doesn't work. You just have to be consistent, again, based on that list that we've identified from before. And then again, the third bucket, what we talked about was referral marketing. So marketing to realtors is usually the number one source of getting, new inventory. It's a great way to do it. So just like you're doing an omni-channel marketing to your target, your ICP, your ideal customer profile, you want to be doing omni-channel towards these realtors and influencers as well. And the great part about, when you get to a realtor is he or she is going to send you hopefully residual business. So send them emails. Also, we've had a lot of luck with partners of, trolling MLSs or realtor.com for any new listings in your market, and then reach out to them automatically. And, as soon as a property comes up on the market or as soon as it goes under contract, and send them rental projections and let them know that you'll pay referral fees. We actually, shameless plug here, we actually built a tool that automatically does that. But if you're not on that tool, you can obviously do that, on your own, and it really works. So those are some, again, I could go on for another half hour, but I want to save some time for the rest of this great panel.
Thanks, Brooke, and thanks for sharing all this. And I just want to share the results of the poll. We asked how many people here, and thank you again for attending. Right, we have more than 100 people attending right now, and a lot of you also answered. It's very interactive. Answered the poll, and about 79% say yes, I am looking to add more properties to my portfolio. Right, so I mean, obviously, if you're here, that's what we're trying to do, either to get more or retain as well. We talk about that. Again, make sure you also ask questions, right? There's a Q&A. You can either in a chat, wherever you want, and I try to be your voice, or you can also ask a question in the end. So now Brooke has just shown us how to reach to the homeowners, even by postcards and the rest. But what can I say to them? How can I market my services here? Maybe that's a question for you, Richie. What can I tell them to show I'm a great property manager they should be working with?
Yeah. So you'd have to find your unique voice, right? You'd have to figure out why you're different in that messaging, whether that's inbound, whether that's your website, whether that's whatever, right? But along with that, along with your unique voice of, like Marcus was saying, if you are local, you understand the market, you're going to probably add some of that context. But along with that, you'd want to add or show some data. I've seen from the good property managers that I've seen that are scaling, they typically have some kind of very readily available data of how are their properties or how is their portfolio performing relatively better or worse than the market. Hopefully relatively better. If worse, they call out those properties, right? But they're talking about how is their portfolio working better than the market. And again, you're going to use some of the market tools, whether that's readily available within Price Labs or any other data tools that you use. You're going to come up with how is whether that's your revenue, whether that's your occupancies, whether that's your RevPAR, whatever that conversation is, you're going to talk about how is that doing relative to market. Number two thing that you're going to also think about, which Brooke mentioned via Calconic, or assuming that's the right word, but you're going to figure out using that is how much can you help that owner generate in terms of revenue, right? Because if you're going to an owner who's already been renting, he has probably some sense, but you might also find a lot of first-time owners, right? And they may need direction from you to saying, how much can I really generate? Does it make sense for me to actually put this property on a short-term rental business, right? So the number two thing that you're going to think about, whether that's and probably it's slightly lower in your marketing funnel, not in your first reach out, but in subsequent reach outs or maybe on your website. But how much can a property owner expect to make on their short-term rentals when they're renting with you? And then number 3, this is not so much in terms of what you include in the campaign, but how do you shortlist some properties, which adding on to what Brooke said is again, in market dashboards and price labs and perhaps in other tools too, you can get an estimate range of what some of the properties in that region, in that area, specific properties are making. And that can be a very specific source for you to say, hey, I see what you're making as a 3-bedroom, but in this market, we have other properties and this is how much we've made. We have an opportunity to work with you and help you make more, or make the same with less occupancy, or whatever the conversation is, right? But you can use that market dashboard tool to figure the specific properties as well. So those are my three pointers. Number 1, use data to compare how you're doing relative to market and use that in your marketing messaging and marketing materials. Number 2, there are going to be first-time owners, or maybe even second-time, like existing vacation rental owners, right? They'll need help from you on figuring out how much can they make, and so you should have an understanding of that calculations. And then number 3, you can use price labs as market dashboards to figure out some properties which are underperforming in the market, and specifically target them.
Thanks, Richie. Same question to you, Marcus. How can I, again, promote myself as a property manager to owners to get them to sign?
And the answer is going to shock you. Brooke and Richie, you gave some excellent details how to implement very specific tactics. But I'm going to focus here on Kyle from Naples, Florida. What's really going to shock you is when people are looking for a property manager, they typically go in on Google and they Google it. And something that I see with property managers all the time is they can't choose the name of their company correctly. And I just did a test here for you, Kyle. What if you wanted to have a vacation rental property management business in Naples? And I typed that into Google, Naples Vacation Rental Property Management. Suddenly I see the top results. One of them is called NaplesFloridaVacationHomes.com, and the other one is called PropertyManagementNaples.com. You may spot the trend here. You have in your company name, you have the location, you have the word management, you have the word property, maybe you have vacation, maybe you have homes, and then you have that in your domain name. That's absolutely amazing, because that means anyone who is searching for a property manager for vacation rentals in Naples will actually find you on the top of Google. And of course, that's not good enough. When they click on that, what they want to see is a professional website where you have a bunch of properties and where people are booking directly. Now, why is that? Why do property owners want to see that? That's because that's what your competition is going to pitch. When they talk to your competition, the competition is going to say, oh, I've been here 30 years. We don't pay anything to OTAs, that's online travel agencies, because we have our guests, we know them all, they only come to us, and so on. Now, if your website doesn't have a booking engine, coincidentally, I happen to be selling booking engines for a living here at HostAway, then you're not going to have a good pitch. But if you just have the right company name, and please do include your location there, people are going to find you. They see you have a booking engine, they see you have a professional website. You're already miles ahead of the competition.
I really like back to basics. It's just like, let people find you and know what you do. I love that.
I must say, whenever of our customers of HostAway, when someone has the name cloudydreams.com or cozyhomes.net, and then they ask, how come nobody's looking for property managers in Chicago? I just have to tell them, well, maybe you should consider including Chicago in your company name, in your title, or maybe even in your domain name, because that's what people will be searching for.
Interesting viewpoints. Before I move on to the next question, I'm going to take a few things, because we do have, I agree, some people have, I love Kyle saying that his company is Sun and Bliss Vacation Rental. I love Sun and Bliss as well, but anyway, that's personal. So we do have a lot of questions here around fees. I mean, would not be the vacation rental industry if we're not talking about fees, but here we're talking more about find a fee, referral fee. I know, Brooke, you've seen the questions. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm just going to say out some of the questions out loud so people who may see the questions are in the chat. What level of referral fee do you feel is appropriate? As well, we talk about fees for property finder fee, this kind of level. So, Brooke, what's your advice here?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because at first I kind of was against it, and then I started doing the math on it. It's kind of like getting direct bookings. You know, getting direct bookings, there is still usually an acquisition cost, and you just have to weigh what that is. So same thing here. I mean, what I usually say is, figure out what is how much are you making on a typical property, and then an average property nets about 10% of the gross booking revenue is usually what falls to the bottom line. Is typically what we've seen. I've asked this over 550 times, and that usually becomes the answer. So if you have a property doing $50,000 in gross booking revenue, what will fall to the bottom line is roughly about $5,000 in first year profits. So if you can get your CAC, your customer acquisition cost, less than first year margins, you can go up to that high. And now you may have commissions and onboarding, costs and expenses and things like that, but I would take that all year. I would take that all day long. If you, so just keep it under that first year. I mean, but you don't usually even have to go that high. I mean, most companies are only paying, $500 a referral fee or $250 a referral fee, but I would not be afraid to bump that up a little bit to get the good. And the key is to get good properties and get properties that are going to be profitable for you and your company.
Thanks for sharing. So I'm moving on to another kind of question. So now, I got the owners, I got their name. Maybe they were sitting around the table or just shooting email to each other, but maybe it's the time where I'm writing my owner contract, right? And we'll be discussing setting up, for example, the basic stuff with the expectations, right, with the owners. So how can I use, again, not just like a rule of thumb or what I think, but how can I use, for example, data to make sure that whatever I'm writing down on a contract, I'm not gonna end up. It's not gonna end up biting me in the rear end any other year or after a few years. Maybe Richie, do you have ideas on this? How to use data basically to make sure I'm keeping sane, everybody will be happy, and it will be safe for myself.
Yeah, this is one of the most common troubling issues that we end up seeing in the long run, working with owners with contracts that are extremely restrictive, right? That have a very limited threshold of how much price you can charge, or how many nights can someone stay, or when can you check in, check out, right? And it becomes extremely restrictive to be able to generate on revenue on that kind of contract, right? So if anything, go for absolute minimum on the contract, right? When it comes to any kind of restrictions, whether that's price, whether that's minimum stay, whether that's something else, right? Now, having said that, some of it may be determined by the market that you're in, where owners are used to seeing other property managers' contracts, and they are used to seeing some things being mentioned in there, right? Like rates or something like that. Historically, I've seen a lot of like really old contracts that are renewing year on year, which have like literally rates that are spelled out in the contract for the next year, for the next 2 years, next 3 years sometimes, right? That is mind-boggling to us. If you think about what we went through in the last 3 years, right? The 2020, 2021, 2022, and imagine if you wrote the contract in 2019, and if you were in a place where in 2020 you needed to drop rates. I'm talking about this from US vacation rental perspective, right? In 2020, you needed to drop rates really fast, and then you needed to increase rates really fast when the domestic supply surge came in. Then maybe at some point in 2022, depending on the markets you were in, you needed to again drop rates because the supply increased, right? And there's going to be so much owner back and forth that it's going to eat up a lot of your teams or your own bandwidth in owner communication. So if you can be as least restrictive in your contract as possible. But if you have to, please use data to inform your owners about what is reasonable, right? And look a little bit ahead. Don't just look at historical, right? Look a little bit ahead and create flexibility, right? So, for example, some creative ways that I've seen people move from a fixed rent like rate chart in their contract to then moving to the subsequent year saying, hey, we have flexibility of moving plus minus 20% on these rates, depending on what the property manager thinks is going to be the right choice for that time frame, right? And then the intent is to move to least restrictive, but you want to create these kind of optionalities, right? You may want to also, some owners may want to have very restrictive saying, hey, in Christmas, we will only take 7-day stays or something like that, right? Try to avoid any of those as much as possible. But if you can't, create flexibility in your contracts.
Thanks, Richie. Marcus, any other consideration when it comes to owner contract numbers?
Yeah, I think Richie is being way too modest here. I think you need to go out to the owners here and tell them that you are using technology. There's many witch doctors out there who will claim that they know the rates that optimize so that you get the best money. But they tend to forget that the owners actually just want money. They want someone who takes care of their property to some extent. But they definitely want money, and having a dynamic pricing tool in place is what guarantees that you get the best return. Now, the number one mistake that I see when I review these contracts, so we have a team actually who does it, who reviews them together with our customers at Hostaway, is that they share a revenue with the owners from the bottom line. That is a massive, massive mistake. And you wouldn't believe, I know there's some of you thinking, who does that? But you would be surprised. There's a lot of property managers whose business even go under because they share the bottom line. What you need to do is consider all the opportunities you have with a rental, and this depends on your location. You can do upsells. You can have different fee structures. I mean, cleaning fees vary by region, by location. And what you should be doing is just take up a spreadsheet, list out all these fees, and then see, well, what happens when you have to pay your cleaner $20 more? Or what happens if you arrange a more efficient cleaning process that saves you money? Does the money go to you because you did the work, or does it go to the owner? The difference can be massive when it comes to your profitability. So remember to share the top line daily rate with your owners, use dynamic pricing, and you'll be just fine. But don't make the mistake of sharing bottom line revenue.
Okay, that's a great way to start the relationship. And when I still have you, Marcus, speaking of getting started, so we signed a contract, we're very happy, and now I guess comes the launch in a way. So what's the best way basically to get up and running here for a new property? What would be your advice?
As we all know, property owners, when you have a good customer with a good property, they stay with you for years, and they don't demand much. There's always a couple who demand too much. But those that are good customers of yours, they stay for a long time. You don't need to worry too much about that. But what you do need to worry about is the moment you sign the contract with a property owner, they're going to get buyer's remorse. Did they make the right choice? And they're going to watch you like a hawk. They're going to want to see their property. Probably they just acquired it, or they're terrified with the previous experience of their previous property manager who got so many bad reviews from the guests. They want to see those properties up and running with professional pictures on all the OTAs. And that depends on where the owner looks. If the owner is an Airbnb user, they're going to look on Airbnb the day after you sign the contract. If they can't find their property, you're off to a terrible start. If they're a Vrbo user, they can't find their property on Vrbo, also off to a terrible start. So make sure you have the tools or the time to manually put these properties in. Of course, I happen to work for Hostaway, which provides a tool that lets you, with just one click, get these properties launched. But that is really critical. Keep in mind that the relationship that you have with the property owner, it's formed before you sign the contract and within the next 7 days of signing the contract. If you do those two parts well, you're going to have a good relationship for many years to come. I
like it because I like this 7-day thing, because when we host guest, usually we say the first day has to be great, right? You have to catch any issue on the first day of a stay, and it's kind of thinking as well, like the being of a stay, being a relationship, or the onboarding is so crucial here. I like this as well, Marcus. I like the 7-day rule. Brooke, what's your view here again to get it right when starting out with a new property or with a new owner, actually?
Yeah. No, I mean, well, first off, Marcus is so spot on. You got to get those properties launched ASAP, and obviously using a tool like HostAway can really help with that. But I mean, it comes down to the fundamentals. Really, to me, it's like communication, setting the right clear expectations from the beginning, and just let them know exactly what's required of them. And where they are in that customer journey. So obviously there's tons of, project management or tons of software out there that can help you with something like this. There's lots of project management tools out there that can help you with, Monday.com, Asana, Smartsheets, and a lot of these property management softwares have them built in as well. So yeah, I think it comes down to setting the right expectations, communicating clearly, and leveraging some tools to kind of help that process, that onboarding process.
Sorry, great. Oh, I wanted to read the results of a survey, but it's going too fast for me. I'm slow on this. But basically, we on that point as well, we had also questions asking you guys. And again, there's like more than 120 of you who are still with us. Fantastic. How you communicate with the homeowners. What's interesting, of course, email was number one. From number two was the owner portal. When obviously, if you have some service, some PMS that has an owner portal function, that's so important. But that's interesting to see, right, on how also to communicate this and share all this and expectation about the onboarding and the rest. Now, so when it comes to, we talk about finding, we talk about starting the right relationship. We talked about, what not to do, what not to put in a contract, for example, to preserve your financial sanity in the coming years. We talked about how to onboard. So now we're up and running. How do we keep them happy? How do we retain owners? Maybe Marcus, again, do you have we talk about the 7-day rule. Do you have any other kind of rules or principles to share on how to retain owners?
Yeah. So first of all, it's very important. The one reason why someone would invest in a property and let you manage it is probably related to money. Either they have money and that allowed them to get property in the first place, or they want money, which is why they're renting it out. I mean, why would you rent out a property if you don't want money? Now, speaking of money can be quite sensitive for a lot of people. So make sure that you have proper owner statements and make sure that the owners understand them. What you don't want to do is you want to have a great rental that's producing great income, and you send a statement every month to the owner. And then after a year, they come back and say, hey, I think you're skimming 10% on the top. Then you've done something wrong, and you want that transparency. If you're using a tool like HostAway, you could choose exactly how much transparency you give to the owners. But also one thing that I've noticed with a lot of property managers, they don't seem to take the time, especially in off season, to just give one phone call per year per owner and ask them if they have any concerns. This is something that will lower your churn numbers dramatically. And if they do have concerns, something that I've seen property managers, they take the feedback, but that's not enough. Just follow up with the owner, give them a call a week later and say, hey, thank you for your feedback. I've been giving it a lot of thought, and here's what we did about it. Here's how we're going to change in the future. This may sound like super simple advice, but I cannot tell you the number of times that property managers simply fail in this. And this is something that you can budget in. There's going to be an off season. There's going to be a slow season in your business. This is not a 24/7, 365 business in no location. There's going to be a period when you can actually reach out to the owners. So please do so at least once a year to make sure that they don't come back with any nasty surprises.
Yeah, that's good advice. And by the way, there are fantastic questions in Q&A. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to close we're going to go through a few more questions, and then I will make sure to reserve the end, at least 10 minutes for these questions, and we can answer in the back because some of them are kind of common. So keep on asking the questions and we'll go, make sure to go back to them. But same topic, retaining owners. Richie, what's your view on it? What to do? What makes them stay with a property manager?
Everything that Marcus said is absolutely essential. So you should totally do that, right? But one additional piece that I would add, especially because of a potential roller coaster year that we're going to have, and because of the 3 roller coaster years that we've had in the past, right? You want to also keep your owners informed about what's happening in the market, right? So that you want to preset their expectations, right? While you're going into the high season, and while you're in the high season, you want to minimize how much effort you spend into it, of course, but you want to keep them informed. And if you're joining this webinar, I think you've already made that first step. You've made that first cut. You are already that select group of few property managers who care about this already, right? And you're going to be that few group of property managers who are going to keep your owners informed about, hey, this summer, it looks like, and this is a hypothetical statement after this, not a real scenario, but hey, this summer, it looks like we're going to have a relatively slower summer than 2022. I want to give you a heads up on this, and here's some of the market data that I have read, right? We're trying to do XYZ to make sure that we are beating the market, right? But know that eventually you're playing against the market, and you can't, as a property manager, you can't generate supply, right? Sorry, you can't generate the demand for your property. And so always keep your owners informed about the market, right? And also similarly, if you're having a fantastic year, in that case, you may not necessarily or may not have to inform your owners, because at the end of it, it's going to be a happy surprise. But if you build it as a practice, it's going to be a good practice, right? And I think I'm going to steal this from Brooke, because Brooke told me this earlier, right? But if you have financial advisors or any of that, that's how they start their messaging, right? Even if your portfolio is doing bad, they probably start with saying, hey, your portfolio is bad, but congratulations, you're still way ahead of the market, right? And that's all that you can really do sometimes, right? And so especially as we go through the year, hopefully nothing extremely terrible happens. Nothing extremely terrible has really happened so far in the travel markets, right? But you want to keep your owners informed as to where occupancy levels in your market are heading, where the bookings in your market are heading, etc.
Yeah.
Richie said keeping owners informed. Brooke, what's your view on that? Again, how to retain owners, importance of talking with them.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be brief. Richie and Marcus nailed it. It's kind of parlaying on a little bit what Marcus talked about, where just asking your owners. One thing I did when I used to run founded a company called Vantage Resort Realty. We had 500 properties under management when I sold it. And one of the things we leveraged was surveying our owners all the time. We surveyed them once a quarter. And during the season, we did it almost monthly. And now I would leverage NPS surveys. But one of the things I really liked about the surveys is they can tell you very quickly what's wrong and how they're feeling. And then you can proactively get out in front of it, and you can address those concerns before they churn. I mean, there's nothing worse than somebody that leaves you, goes to another management company, and they never even gave you a hint, never even told you. But shame on you if you don't ask them. Give them the opportunity to speak. And a lot of it comes down to what I said before, communication. And also it's people like people, you know what I mean? And people stay with people that they like. So build relationships. One of the things I've learned, I surveyed 50 different companies, 50 different property managers and leaders in our industry, and asked them some of the top 10 mistakes they made. And one of the ones that came back was not having owner gatherings soon enough. And I thought that was counterintuitive. I would never have done that, because I was afraid my owners would kind of come together and revolt against me or something. But come to find out, we've had multiple people told us that they wish they would have done that sooner, and how that built the relationships, and how they build further relationships with them. And that builds that bond. And you're not going to leave somebody if you have a really good bond with them and you're doing everything else pretty well too.
That's great to hear. Relationships are good, building relationships. I want to though ask hot question. And again, just like maybe each of you takes like 1 minute just to answer this one, so we have time for the Q&A. But when should we fire owners? So it's a bit loaded term, I know that, but let's please bear with me. Marcus, what's your view on that?
Ask your staff. Introduce a non-harassment policy. Owners can be tricky. They can be angry. They can scream. If they scream at your staff, you're going to lose your staff. Protect your staff at all costs. Ask them, is there someone you don't like to work with? Is there someone who is annoying? Is there someone who's difficult to work with? That's one way of doing it. There's also a data-driven approach, but money doesn't always speak the same language as human beings. But yeah, if you're not alone, I think if you're working alone, you already know who you don't want to work with. But if you got staff, please take care of them.
Love that. Brooke, what's your advice?
Yeah,
here?
I'm going to parlay right with that. So again, on that survey I did, those or the top 10 mistakes of the 50 top leaders in our industry, this was the #1 response, was not firing the wrong owner soon enough. And I was really surprised by that. And it came down to it exactly what Marcus said. You know, they suck up 10x the energy. The burnout to the team just isn't worth it. Don't be afraid to prune annually for a healthier, more productive team. I used to, when I ran Vantage, we would bench rank. We had 3 columns that we bench rank every single property / owner. We would do it based on the revenue that came into the company. We would do it based on maintenance tickets or trouble tickets. And then the 3rd column was what we call PETA factor. So the pain in the ass owner factor. And if the bottom 10% was in red, and then, you know, it'd be yellow and then green. And then if we had any that were all 3 in red, we fired them every single time. Didn't even ask any questions. They were gone. And if it was 2 out of 3 or something like that, we would have a discussion around it. But yeah, pruning annually definitely will make a much better team. The last thing you need, your team is so important. Last thing you need to do is burn them out and get rid of them.
Geez, I hope I look good in your report sheet, bro. Richie, how about you? What's your advice?
I'm a big believer in pruning just about in most places, right? Like even at Price Labs, one of our values is frugality, where you try to find what is it that you absolutely should not be doing, spending your time on, and get rid of it, right? Because oftentimes we end up being far too optimistic about making something work. And in this case specifically, while we've spoken about those terrible owners that are very difficult to deal with, there are also bad properties that no matter you've put your energy in figuring out the listing description, the photos, the whatever, all the pricing, etc., and it is not just going to yield to your bottom line really, really well, right? And you have all these properties that are making $10,000, $5,000 on your EBITDA, and you have this one property that you're spending just about the same amount of time on, but it's really adding $500,000 to your EBITDA. Ask yourself if you want to keep that property, right? Ask yourself if you want to upgrade from that property to something else, right? And every property manager's business is different, right? And sometimes you may have all of your properties that are generating $1,000 EBITDA, and you have one property that's generating $5,000 EBITDA, but it takes 10x more time to actually service that property because it does not work in your business model. You may want to remove that property, right? So it's just, you have to figure out what works for your business model, and then cull out the remaining so that you can continue to scale on your business model.
Cool. Thanks, Richie. So quickly, I will try to take one question, one of you to answer. So we go through that. So we talk about what's going to happen in the future. It's kind of hard, but there's this threat of recession we hear, right? I think some of you mentioned this. I seen in the question how to address that. I mean, Marcus, maybe do you have something to share around this? How to?
Oh, absolutely. I have a lot to share about this. Now, for some reason, I can't send a message to everyone, but if we can send a link there. If you're wondering how the economy is doing, you can check out the real quarterly GDP growth. Just Google that or go to this website or any other website that shows it. As you can see, we did have a recession in Q1 and Q2 2022. That was exactly a year ago. That's when the recession ended. Right now, GDP is growing at 2.6 above inflation. What that means is that the economy is growing around 8% every quarter. That's a massive amount. And of course, that's growing too fast. What that means is that people have too much money. They book up all the vacation rentals and the rates are through the sky. That's also why plane tickets are expensive, why rental cars are expensive, because the economy is growing so fast. Now, the definition of a recession is that the economy is actually contracting. Now, if you look at the growth rates, you can see that we're actually at the same level as we were in 2018, 2019, when the economy was doing really well. But here's the good news. If these things change and the interest rates don't predict them to change because the bond yield isn't negative or isn't going down anytime soon, we are in a recession-proof industry. You may think, even though you manage luxury properties, you may think that that means that if people have less money, they're going to book less. But actually, what they're going to do is they're going to not book that first-class ticket to Paris and go there. Instead, they're going to drive to a beach. And if you happen to have a home on the beach, even during a recession, that's really good because you're not an airline.
Thanks for sharing. Thanks, Marcus. Question back to conversion and stuff. Question from somebody in the know, Richard Volton. We talk, maybe it's a question, I guess, for Brooke here. Leads are one thing, commission another. Conversion depends on people. How to train sales and closing staff to get the best conversions? Any advice here?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're right. I mean, it's we see it across the board, anywhere from 5% conversion up to 80% conversion of the leads that come in. Now, some properties just aren't going to be a good fit, but it's not really, in my mind, it's really not necessarily the training so much. It's hiring the right people and really understanding who are those right people. We leverage, and we've done this from the beginning, and I've been using these tools for over a decade, but we leverage psychometric personality assessment tools. And we've actually done a regression analysis, and we know the top profiles for the best closers out there. So they're captains. If you're using predictive index, they're captains and persuaders and mavericks. They will close 3x the output of other people out there. So that would be the first thing, is hiring that. Again, I don't, shameless plug, we actually created a fractional business development team just using those profiles to kind of help close. So if you don't have those profiles, we can do that. But I would leverage those psychometric personality assessment tools like predictive index and hire the right people. That's goal number one.
Thanks for sharing, Brooke. Speaking of a shameless plug, I see a question here and I have Richie in my mind. I see a question from Kyle, which is, what are good resources to evaluate what's trending in your local market, and with inventory and demand?
Absolutely. This is like a direct plug. Kyle, thank you so much. Kyle is not planted from Price Labs. This is something that we do at Price Labs, right? If you're using us for pricing, you'd see what's happening in terms of future forecasts in the market. Where do we see compared to same time last year? What occupancies look like, etc. Also, another product, market dashboards, can help you understand what's happening in various markets, what's happening in terms of supply, what's happening in terms of demand, etc., etc.
Thanks for answering. So let me take the last one I see here, last but one. So it's from Jenny. Sorry, she's a self-managing STR MTR owner. Talking with a few small complex owners, trying to curb their greed of wanting to charge a premium for us being STR. Although I've pointed out the benefit of less turnovers, lower maintenance costs, consistent occupation, they're still pushing on the what do we get out of it? Any ideas on how to curb this? Anyone wants to take this one? I guess it's somebody who's basically persuading people who do like usually tenant or medium to go short-term rental. How do you persuade basically these kind of property owners to switch maybe to the short-term rental side of the business? I'm guessing. Oh, medium term, sorry. Medium term. Any view on that?
Show the numbers. I mean, to me, it comes down to a numbers game. It's a math problem. Just show them the numbers.
Yeah. If the complex owners, like, you have to understand why they're saying that. Is that because
I guess probably owners are pretty afraid of wear and tear if you have a lot of people coming in, coming out, I'm guessing. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So maybe we can do with Jenny's like what Viveka's done in the chat. She shared the LinkedIn links to everyone here. So feel free to maybe liaise directly to be clear here on the question, so we can really want to make sure we answer to you, right? So it's important here. Last question we have here. Postaway, what are you focusing your new liquidity on? Just to close it and free you up.
That's a great question. Thank you very much. I feel very honored for that question. We are going to keep improving our software. We're going to improve our support. We're going to keep growing, and we're going to add on more services and more functionality. The nice thing with this investment is that well, they say that the times are bad and it's difficult, but actually there was a huge amount of interest from a lot of investors, and many of them had plans. Now, I don't like investors who have plans. I don't like that. They come up with these ideas. Why don't we take what you have today and then we change it? And then usually it turns into something bad, but they somehow end up winning money anyway. I'm not a fan of that idea at all. So we're working with an investor who invested in exactly what we're doing today, and that's exactly what we're going to keep doing. If you're wondering what we're doing, we have more and better reviews than anyone else out of all the PMSs out there. And what's even better, if you go and ask Airbnb, Vrbo, and Booking.com, who's your best partner? Who is the best software out there? They will all say, well, they won't say Hostaway actually. What they will say is, well, we have this list here of just a couple ones that are the top tier partners. And it just so happens that for all three of these platforms, Hostaway is on that list, which is very, very rare. And we're going to stay there for many years to come.
Free up if you can, but because you may have a lot of stuff. Brooke, do you have time for one more question by chance?
Of course.
Sales funnel, web design. Sorry, I didn't see the last question, so I see this one. Websites. So John said websites have to be the websites have to work as persuasive sales funnels. Any comment on web design, what to do? I think you know quite a lot about it.
No, I mean, this is actually, I didn't mention this before because I know we were running out of time, but it's the lowest hanging fruit out there is really updating that property management page. It blows my mind that so many people spend so much time, money, and effort building these great looking websites, and then their property management services page is an afterthought. It's just like a contact form or just like an email. So yeah, so spend some time on there. There's some, I mean, we actually have, if you email me directly, brooke@vintory.com, happy to share. We have an elements of a great landing page. But you know, it comes down to having the key messaging built out. So making sure you have your USPs, make sure you have your call to actions, your features and benefits, risk trust icons and risk reversals and things like that. But yeah, just leverage a really well-designed landing page is pretty critical. And it's, again, it's the lowest hanging fruit because most people, they already have a ton of traffic already coming to their website. And kind of like Marcus said before, you know, people are Googling you, they're going to your website. And then if it's too challenging, too difficult to get more information, they're just going to go to the next one. So again, email me, brooke@vintory.com, and happy to share that infographic that talks about all those great elements.
Thanks for sharing, Brooke. And maybe Richie, on to you. How to reach you? How to know more about Price Labs, for example?
I think Vika already added Price Labs' website in the chat, but we are at pricelabs.co. You can find us. If you want to reach out to me, I'm at richie@pricelabs.co. Yeah, and you know, like if you want to learn anything about dynamic pricing, market data, that's our specialty, and we'd love to chat.
Perfect. And Marcus, you already gave your email, I think.
Yes, you can email me anytime, especially Cyrus, Julian. You're just missing the word bubbles from your name. I'm a big Trailer Park Boys fan, but you can email me anytime, marcus@hostaway.com. And same for you, Jenny. If there's anything you need from us, send me an email directly, marcus@hostaway.com.
Yeah, and thank you to all three of you, and thank you for people in the chat, Richard, Cyrus, all the people who already made this chat live. So much information shared. So I free you up, everyone, to continue on your day or spend your evening or your night, because I know some people it's the night. Thank you all for attending. Still 90 people, and we're over time. So thanks a lot. You'll get the recording tomorrow and an email also with the offers and how to redeem them, which is very important. Thank you again for your attention. I'll see you soon. Cheers.
Thanks, y'all.